Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom.
First of all, I'd like to give all praise, respect, honor, and glory to Yehudah.
Amen.
I'd like to thank you for allowing us all to be here this day.
Amen.
I'd like to give due respect to my Abba Chief Elquanah bin Yehudah. I'd like to give due respect to Nasir bin Yisrael, and even Chief Kohat bin Lewi. I'd like to give due respect to all the men, leaders, women, children, everyone. And again, I bid you all in the tongue of ancient forefathers. Shabbat Shalom Lakim.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right. So today we're going to be in the portion Wayigash. And all of these portions, they connect to each other. So I'm going to try my best to make sure that we all done by 2 o'clock. If anything, we'll probably be done by 2:30, but I mean 1:30. It's a lot clear. Torah for that. But it goes right back to, you know what? It goes right back to that nervousness. You know, when you're in front of God's people, sometimes your mind will misspeak. Chief Ooze just spoke about that. So that was just a mishap right there, 1:30. I'm going to try to get us out here by 1:30. But the thing is, when we read these portions, sometimes because we teach them a week apart, we miss the fact that they're all connected. And in doing so, and missing the connectivity of all the lessons and all these portions, we kind of miss out on the big picture. What's really going on here? Like we saw about the divide it was talking about in the half Torah portion just now, but think about the amount of division that's been in our nation since the beginning. When we read about our forefathers and our 4 uncles and our 4 mothers, literally, you see nothing but division. And even before that, when we're dealing with Jacob and Esau, we see division. And even with Sarah and Hagar, we see division. And when we start to dissect these portions a little bit, because as we know, Torah teaches Torah, and you pay attention to what's going on here, you learn that there's a lot of dysfunction that has been going on since the beginning of this nation. A lot of time, even our brothers and sisters that don't know themselves, they'll talk about, how the black community can't get along, we can't help each other, we can't work together, but that's been us since the beginning. So I'm going to go back and forward a little bit because this is really all just one big story. So before I do that, because I'm going to talk for a little bit, I'm going to get a sip of water. Y'all can gather y'all thoughts. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Abraham, Yitzchak, and as we can see in this portion, we're dealing with Yosef and Yaakov and his other brothers. So, in dealing with Abraham, can we just go to Genesis 17:1 real quick? Just the first verse. Hope everybody's doing well, by the way. I don't know if the rest of y'all got the Citizens app like me, but it's crazy right now in New York. Like, it's crazy. Shootings, stabbings, people dying, like, literally left and right. The car flipped over in the train station yesterday. I don't know if y'all saw that pop up. So it's a lot going on right now in the world. And, pray for each other, pray for ourselves, pray for our children. Like, I really do be worried about y'all children because I know y'all living in a very different world, and times may not be as gangster or whatever as it was maybe in the 90s or 2000s, but there's a lot of mental illness in y'all generation. Certain things I can't say because we on YouTube, but certain things y'all dealing with in school, I know a lot of that has to do with mental illness. People want to play costume and dress up as different things that they're not, and then you have to address them as such or behave that they're such. And y'all, I know y'all dealing with a lot, especially being raised in an old school frame of thinking and dealing with a new world. And, sometimes as adults, we forget that because we didn't grow up in the world that they're growing up in. So we feel like they should be as strong as we think they should be. And it's like, it's not the same world. We may be able to teach some of the same lessons and certain things may be communicable over different situations. However, they live in a very different world. Because growing up, we didn't have access to the same level of technology they did. So they're exposed to a whole different world. And as adults, we kind of have to be abreast of what's going on so we could combat that better. But that's just a thought that came to my mind. But let's get into Father Abraham.
Genesis chapter 17, verse 1. And when Abraham was 90 years old and 9, Yehovah appeared to Abraham and said unto him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me, and be thou wholehearted. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abraham fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be the father of a multitude of nations.
All right, you go to 23 real quick.
Genesis chapter 23.
Oh, 17:23.
17:23.
That's my bad. No, you good. That's me. We're going to make it work. We're going to get cohesive. It's all good.
And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were brought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's children, Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the selfsame day as God had said unto him.
So the same day the Most High God gave Abraham this instruction is the same day that Abraham followed through. And when we look at our father Abraham, and we're going to go to another portion, but when we look at him, a lot of the time we see his faithfulness, but it was the fact that he followed instructions. And even as a parent, if you have a child that follows your instructions and they know it's got a lot of pushback or a lot of talk back, your heart's going to kind of cleave to that child. You know, not that you're playing favorites, but that's why the Most High God had the relationship with Abraham that he did. There was no pushback from Abraham. There was no doubt. The same day the Most High God told him to do something or not, if in that same instant, Abraham did it. Let's go to Genesis 18, verse 17. You can stop at 19.
And Yehudah said, Shall I hide from Abraham that which I am doing, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I have known him to the end that he may command his children and his household after him, that they may keep the way of Yehudah to do righteousness and justice, to the end that Yehudah may bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken of him.
Torah. So we know from right here that the Most High is considering Abraham even in his plans where he don't have to. Why? Because of the faithfulness of Abraham. However, I'm pretty sure we're all wondering, what's the point in pointing these things out in Abraham's attributes? Because let's fast forward now to our father Jacob, Yaakov. The same day the Most High told Abraham to do something, he did it. But if we think back, either the last portion or the portion before, we ain't going to go there. Trust me, we're going to be out of here in good time. But if we think back a couple portions before, we see where Jacob is telling his wives, remove your idols from you, or put your idols away. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Abraham moved away from idol worship, which would allow me to assume that Isaac wasn't raised in idol worship, which would allow me to also assume that Jacob wasn't raised with idol worship. We moved away from that. So, Jacob supposed to be in the head of his household, being a man that was raised knowing that there is no God besides our God. We have to look and question, why did he allow these gods, these pagan idols, to exist in his household for that long? Because this is not the beginning of his story when he's telling them this. They're already about 12 kids deep. And now he's saying, put the idols away. So even as men, we kind of have to look at that in ourselves and say, did Yaakov make a good decision in what he did? Because we look at him and see that he sold himself into slavery right away, off of his eyes. And nowadays they got 1,000,001 podcasts about what men want, what women want, how relationships should work. But one consensus that you can get from all of these podcasts is that us men are very visual. And so Jacob kind of brought a headache on himself, having to deal with his father Laban, deal with Raquel, because really and truthfully, not to make, those who know Judah, so not to make Leah look good, but I'm pretty sure when he said put the idols away, he was only talking to Raquel and maybe her handmaid. But this should show us that we have to be a little bit better in our selection process, because her mindset will raise your children, not her looks. So in Jacob making his decision, he went right after Raquel's looks and didn't even think about the type of person that she was. And, again, not to play favorites with Leah, But as you begin to see the progression in the story, it's like, I know some people feel like he buried Raquel on the way and Leah got buried with him just because of happenstance. Personally, I feel like Leah got buried with him because once his mind fully matured, he realized who was good for him. Because as we read about Leah and as we're going to read about Judah today, you can see her mindset and how she raised her child. And we know with Judah is when she actually began to praise God for herself. So when we see him and behaving in this way, we got to understand that this is the version of his mother that he got. This is the version of his parents that Judah got. So we can look at Reuben and Shimon and Lewi. They all got a different version of their parents, the same way all of us have a different version of our parents. And those of you with children, your children get a different version of you. You might not see it. You might not acknowledge it. You might not want to acknowledge it. But if you have more than one child, each one of them gets a different version of you. Because if I have a child that like comic books, cartoons, and all that stuff, my heart may cleave to them a little bit because they like the things that Abba like. However, I have to be mindful of having multiple children that I can't show that. I can't wear my feelings on my sleeves because what's that's going to do? Create tension and derision amongst the rest of my kids. So again, we have to look at Jacob and and not to speak bad about Father Jacob, but this is one of those instances where you have to call a spade a spade. And in him showing so much favoritism between his wives, he created problems with his children. And him showing so much favoritism to Joseph, he created problems with his children. So that's why I say, all of these portions are connected because we wouldn't be here today today as in right here, today's portion. But Joseph wouldn't have been a victim of his circumstances had Jacob been more mindful of his mannerisms with his family. Sorry, water break. Sorry, it get hot up here, so. But I say that to say, for all of us men, because especially in this way of life, we're taught that, we're the leaders, we're the heads of households. So it's like in that, we kind of have to push that more because a lot growing up, we've directed a lot of attention towards the sisters. And really and truthfully, I don't feel like it's been an even amount of attention directed towards us brothers, myself included. So it's just like there has to be a change if we want to change, because if we are the leaders of the household, then really and truthfully, all of the broken homes in all of our communities kind of start with us. And that has so much more to do with what we can teach in an hour or two. That takes more than 6 days a week to deal with, because some of us are dealing with so many different traumas, insecurities, and issues that you're not going to get what you need in 2 hours. And really and truthfully, a lot of us look for that. We don't really try to evolve the 6 days of the week, and we come here on Shabbat trying to get something from here to make us stronger for the week when you should have been getting stronger before you get here so that you can add to that strength. If I trained once a week, I wouldn't be as strong as I am. That's why I have to train constantly. But that's with anything in our life. If you read once a week, you're not going to be that good at reading. But if you read 6 or 7 days a week, you'll be pretty good at it. That's with anything in life. If you practice it often, you will be good at it. So if we don't reflect and really internalize this book, internalize ourselves, internalize our families, and think about our communities, I didn't want to say internalize again, then we could really see that, hey, a lot of these issues could be dealt with if we as men kind of grew up. And that's like a hard thing to hear a lot of the times, because I know I'm younger than a lot of us men here, probably the youngest man here outside of Amos and Brother Markel. But emotional maturity is very important. And a lot of the times in our community, not talking about Israel, I'm just talking about the black community in general, because we have so much emotional and sexual immaturity, there's a whole bunch of families and children created into problems that they shouldn't have been born into. And you look at Jacob, first thing he saw was her beautiful face and her beautiful form, and he wanted to jump up in that. We are Jacob's children. We are Jacob's sons. So in that, learn from that. Young men, learn from that. Look around you and learn from others' mistakes, you know. And if any toes are being stepped on, you should have wore steel-toe boots. Nah, I'm just joking. But, you know, the only way we really can be better as a community is if we start to address certain issues that are present and actually deal with them. If we don't deal with these issues, then that wound is just gonna fester, get infected, and now we just gonna come into more and more sicknesses. There should be no reason that we have so much division in Israel today if we all agree that this book is the book. But we have it. So, like Isaiah 51 verse 1 and 2 says, don't worry, you ain't gotta go there. We have to be like Abraham and Sarah. Abraham cleaved unto the Most High. Abraham followed the Most High. And even if you look at the little bit of the relationship and the dynamic that we see between Abraham and Sarah, you learn a little bit how to be. When Sarah brought a problem to him, which she didn't have to, because like he told her, it was her servant. But her and understanding that he was still the figurehead of the household, she didn't decide it was just upon her to deal with the issue. She addressed him about it first. Then he said, whatever you feel is right. Deal with her however you would deal with her. Then we fast forward a little bit. Now Isaac is in the picture. And now we're going to talk a little bit about Isaac. So now Isaac is in the picture, and Sarah sees something that she don't like. She sees Ishmael behaving towards Isaac in a way in which she knows is detrimental to his upbringing. And this is why as parents, you have to be looking over, or I was trying to think of the word, but I just lost it. But you have to be watchful of your own children and children around your children, because people, even from a young age, are dealing with problems and they'll take it out on somebody else's child. So whatever Hagar's issue with Sarah was, that trickled down to Ishmael, and he was taking that out on Isaac. Her seeing that knew that him being around wasn't for the betterment of her son. So again, she addressed Abraham and let him know what she saw that made her displeased, and you didn't even see it back and forth with them. Like I take that, I look at that because he was distressed in his spirit, and the Most High came to him with an answer. And it's like a lot of times in our lives, or marriages, relationships, we'll combat one another. We want to go back and forth. A lot of times people feel like, oh, arguments that's a part of relationships, and it's like disagreements are, but not arguments. Because oftentimes when there's arguments, there's some lingering feelings from something else that's all coming in at that moment. Amen. See, the baby get it. So, it's just like seeing their dynamic and how they interacted with one another. It's like, you know what? If there's a misunderstanding or a disagreeable moment that's happening between a husband and a wife, as a man, I'm going to look at Abraham and say, although the Most High came to him, we don't have that same relationship, I'm going to go to the Most High first. Okay. Because the same way we like to say women are emotional, sometimes as men, we emotionally react as well. So in that instant, he could, because it's like it says that he was displeased on account of his son. That's who he was worried about, as any man would be. You telling me to get rid of my son. So the Most High gave him an answer, and what did Abraham do? He got rid of Hagar, he got rid of his son. So as men, that's another lesson to take away from Abraham, and now dealing with Yitzchak and his upbringing. Again, Ishmael was removed from the picture. Why? So Yitzchak wouldn't be raised with all of the same insecurities that some of us might have been raised with, from being bullied by whether it was people at school, some people it's their parents, some people it's your siblings, it's your cousins or whoever. They minimize your talents or anything that it is that's about you. They call you a know-it-all, this, that, and the third. Whole bunch of names that many of us have maybe heard or even said to somebody else growing up, not realizing that you're damaging that person's self-esteem. So in her removing Ishmael from the picture, she did Isaac a great service. You have to be mindful and monitoring of what's going on in your children's life. Now we're going to fast forward again back to Jacob. Don't worry, we're going to start the portion soon. And Jacob, he didn't emulate any of these behaviors that we see from his parents or his grandparents. That is what it will allow us to see why there's so much derision between these 12, well, really 11 out of 12, but so much confusion and derision between these brothers. Because he clearly didn't have a good communicative relationship with his wives. They're constantly fighting. They're constantly bickering. He's constantly working. So chances are, again, this is all opinion because we only know what's on the paper. He wasn't necessarily as much of a husband as he could have been, nor was he as much of a father as he could have been. But that's because he put himself into circumstances in his life that prevented him from doing all of these things. And again, that goes back to us men seeing and learning and knowing we have to be more mature than this. We have to be more mature than what was before us, because if we don't want any more broken families, whether in Israel or the black community, that's upon us to be mature enough to say, yeah, they got this opportunity in front of me, but should I take it? Because y'all could talk to y'all teenage sons. They got it easy. I ain't gonna get into the details, but they got it easy. And even my generation, back when I was in high school and college, I'm not saying it was super easy, but I'm saying that torah YAH for understanding. Because, yeah. So, again, I'm gonna iterate that point one more time. It's on us as men, you young boys, the ones ahead of us. All of the problems that exist within our community is more so on us than anything else. Because even if you want to blame the women or whatever, that's what you chose. And that takes a lot of maturity to understand I did that. Now Jacob and his sons and all of their problems with each other, if Jacob would have had a watchful or a thoughtful mind like his grandmother Sarah, he would have saw the problems going on between his children and he would have checked that. He didn't. He still continued to show favoritism to Joseph. But no worries, we're going to get into this portion now, deal with some more of these issues because we want to be one big happy family. Go ahead, Amos.
Genesis chapter 44, verse 18. That's right.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Then Judah came near unto him and said, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not thine anger burn against thy servant.
Mm-hmm.
For thou art even as Pharaoh. Yehovah asked his servant, my Lord asked his servant, saying, Have ye a father or a brother? Mm-hmm. And we said unto my Lord, We have a father, an old man, and the child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead. And he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. All
right, so right now we picking up off of last week's portion where Joseph is having a back and forth with his brothers. Again, this is him not being really fully healed from all of the trauma that they caused upon him over these years. Him not being healed caused him to put them through an emotional roller coaster because hurt people, which, was mentioned last week. But one of the things that I did take away from Joseph, too, is that something we all need to learn in our lives, what the Most High has for us is for us. And in him speaking his plans to his brothers, he kind of put himself in this circumstance. Now, granted, he was very young, so there's a certain level of naivety, and he's not thinking his brother's going to want to bring him harm the way that they did. But us being adults, most of us at least, we got to be mindful of sometimes we might talk too much, where we have a blessing coming our way, or we have a vision that the Most High showed us, and we want to open our mouths to the first person that we can, and now they speak negativity on your plan, and now you feeling upset when it wasn't your place to speak to them about it in the first place. Because sometimes a person's own insecurities will cause them to speak negativity on your plans. A lot of the times, people have either failed their dreams or never chased them in the first place. So the minute you talk about doing something more and better, they're going to speak that on yours. Why should I let you level up? And sometimes it's so subconscious or unconsciously that they don't even realize in that moment they're being a hater or they're speaking negatively on your plans. They just think they being real. Oh, nah, you think you could do that at this age, or you think you could do this, or you think you accomplished that. And it's like, that's because they failed, or that's because they never tried, which still means they failed. So it wasn't for you to speak it to them. That's something that we could take away from Joseph and learn, like, you know what? Let me walk in it and let people just see the blessing. And who I can help, I can help. Now we moving forward. Joseph is letting them know. Judah is now making that plea, Tosif.
And thou sayest unto thy servants, bring him down unto me, that I may set mine eyes upon him. And we said unto my Lord, the lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. And thou sayest unto thy servants, except your youngest brother come down with you, ye shall see my face no more. And it came to pass, when we came up unto thy servant my father, we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, go again, buy us a little food. And we said, we cannot go down if our youngest brother be with us. Then will we go down? For we may not see the man's face, except our youngest brother be with us. And ye servant my father said unto us, ye know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went out from me. And I said, surely he is torn into pieces, and I have not seen him since. And if ye take this one also from me, and harm before him, ye will bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Now therefore, when I come to thy servant, my father, and the lad is not with us, seeing that his soul is bound up with the lad's soul, it will come to pass, when he seeth that the lad is not with us, that he will die. And thy servants will bring down the gray hairs of thy servant our father with the sorrow to the grave. For thy servant became surety for the lad unto my father, saying, if I bring him not unto thee, then shall I bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore, let thy servant, I pray thee, abide instead of the lad, a bondman to my Lord, and let the lad go up with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father if the lad be not with me? Lest I look upon the evil that shall come unto my father.
All right. So again, from last portion, we see Jacob still never healed from this trauma, losing his son. Because as we all know, because he's made it very clear, this was his favorite son. So in that's why he was so weary about letting now his youngest son from the same wife, who he showed his favoritism to, that I can't trust you guys with this one. Because the last one I sent out with y'all, he didn't make it back. But they pleading back and forth with their father. And, you know, like they say, there's a term for a person that loses a spouse or a parent and things like that. But there's no term for someone that loses a child. Lost my train of thought, bringing it back. And that's why, you know, Jacob and any parent in this situation, you don't really, you know, most people, I don't think you really heal from a death of a loved one. You just kind of learn to evolve and adapt, especially, you know, as many of us, again, know that some of us have lost our parents. Some of us, you know, as time progresses, you know, they're going to make that transition. And in those moments, you become a different person. I remember how my Abba and Ima were when both of my grandmothers were alive. And I seen a bit of a shift in both of them and their behaviors and their mannerisms. You know, sometimes that thing that, like, you know, death, like it says, it makes us consider. So in watching both of my parents, you know, lose their parents, or at least my grandmothers, it was like, you see the shift in a person's persona. And not that it's a bad thing, but it's like, you know, the dramatic effect it could have. So now looking at Jacob and him losing one of his youngest sons, you could imagine how much his life has changed now and the type of person he is. And he seemed to be kind of a weary person anyway. He didn't have the same level of faith as Abraham. But right now we're dealing with, they let the brother go. Now they with him. Joseph is playing his final game on them. And Judah being the spokesperson, something that we could learn from this right here, and no, I'm not saying this just because I'm a Judite, or at least we claim Judah, but it's okay to be tactile with your words. It's all right to not, you know, especially as men, sometimes you don't always have to combat aggression with aggression, because, again, we're talking about warriors right here. Like, just 2 of these brothers took out a whole city. And this is something that was made known as it was shown to us, because that's why the people around him feared them. So we're not talking about people that aren't capable of danger. These are people that are very capable of perpetuating a lot of danger if they want it. But what did he do in this instant? He pleaded with him on an emotional level. Goes right back to emotional maturity. You know what I mean? He understood what was going on with his Abba. He understood what was going on in the situation. And he knew the exact words to speak to bring about the outcome necessary.
Chapter 45, verse 1. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, because every man to go out from me, and there stood no man with him. While Joseph made himself known unto his brethren, and he wept aloud, and the Egyptians heard, and the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph, doth my father yet live? And his brother could not answer him. His brothers could not answer him, for they were affrighted at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near. And he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt.
This is that dun 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 moment. This is that dramatic shift in the story because they had counted Joseph out. He was down but not out. So right now, they finding out this man that has been putting us through all of these trials and tribulations is our brother. And don't think all of them thoughts came back to their mind. All of them thoughts came rushing right back in, from him first telling them the dreams to him first telling them, to however they treated him before that point. Because you could know, you don't need a whole bunch of details to know. If you're a sibling, you know that they put Joseph through it. Him being one of the youngest brothers, they put Joseph through it. So all the times they done picked on him, all the times they done called him names, them plotting to sell him or kill him, all of these things are coming back to their mind right now, as he's the king of Egypt. Not king, but he's at such a high level that he's pretty much that. So let's take that back to us. You know, I'm the youngest, so I wasn't picking on none of my siblings, but none of mine was really picking on me. But I had a conversation with my brother, my oldest brother from my mother last year. We're 11 years apart. So, you know, we sat down, talked, and he was saying, you know, Quan, I'm sorry for how I was to you growing up. Now me, I'm just like, what do you mean? He's like, nah, you know, I was real standoffish with you. You know, I pushed you off a lot. I wasn't really a brother to you in any way. I said, no, like me being me, I let things go. So I'm just like, I didn't take nothing of it. He was like, yeah, nah, but you know what? I was older than you. I should have been more mature. I should have been a brother to you. I should have been like a real brother to you. He said the same way, you know, I had my brother Chris, older than him. He said the same way I had Chris to hold me down and to be a brother to me, I never did that for you. So I'm apologizing for that. And I had to tell him, I said, bro, we both grown men now. I said, whatever bonds we couldn't make as we was kids, and I know I was annoying, and I probably still am a little annoying now, but I said, whatever bonds we couldn't make then, we have the time now. I'm not even thinking about that. However, although it didn't plague my mind, it plagued his. And that's what's happening right there with these brothers. All the little things that they know they should have did better or been better, them being the older brothers, it's like, damn, all them feelings is coming on them now. Let that be mindful. Let that have us be mindful of how we are to one another. Sometimes you may handle a situation in a certain way and be like, I'm better than that. Even most recently with me. I ain't even want to talk about it. But I was like, afterwards, I'm like, yeah, I was better than that. But, Tosif.
Verse 5. And now be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and there are yet 5 years in which there shall be neither plowing nor harvest.
So how old is Joseph now? See, if it wasn't Shabbat, I'd offer a prize, but how old is Joseph now? Nobody? Nope. Close. Getting warmer. Close. You was close. So somewhere between 37 and 40. We getting close. Prize winner. Because if it was 7 years of famine, and now, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. Right now we on the second year of famine, and we know that Joseph became over Pharaoh's house at the age of 30. So now we about 9 years into the story, 9 years after that point. So Joseph is around 39 years old. So now he's about to be a real adult. Real adult is 40 on up. Yeah. 30s, still teens. 20s, we like preteens. I say we because, yes, I'm still in the 20s. Holding on to it with everything I got. And so you think about Joseph being 39, think about how old his brothers are. And when you think about how old his brothers are, then you really could see why they looked at Reuben like he was stupid. Because Reuben, if Joseph is 49, then Reuben is closer to 50. Which he's somewhere around 50, depending on how far apart the kids are spaced and who was having babies when. Reuben is around 50-something years old, maybe late 40s, early 50s. So, and him offering up his children to his father, like we saw in last week's portion, that really shows you just how stupid, not to make fun of him, but that kind of really shows you his mind state. And it also lets us know that there are such things as old fools. That age isn't a determining factor when it comes to wisdom, knowledge, or understanding. Because 50, dumb, 39, running the kingdom. And that goes for all of us. Lessons can be learned from all of these people that's younger than us. Don't never miss a lesson and miss a blessing. Every last little child in here, even the ones that can't speak yet, as I get older, they can teach me. Sometimes adults will ask for help with phones because the technology is new, and it's like there's more advice that some of us have to offer outside of technology. Even a brother I was speaking to at the gym, he telling me he feeling weak, this, that, and the third. So everything he telling me, I said, you sound like you dehydrated. Then he gonna tell me, I went to the doctor 2 weeks ago and she said the same thing. Mind you, this is a person with gray hair. So you telling me, somebody who doesn't have any real experience in the medical field, something, and I tell you it's dehydration, and your doctor told you the same thing 2 weeks ago, and you still didn't make any changes in the past 2 weeks. And I asked him 2 weeks ago, that was like 2 months ago. I asked him 2 weeks ago, have you started drinking more water? I tried. Old fools. Because the wisdom could be presented to a person on how to handle a situation, they'll still keep doing the same thing if they want to. But enough about that. We're going to focus more on what's happening here. Tosif?
Verse 7. And God sent me before you to give you a remnant on the earth, and to save you alive for a great deliverance. So now, it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hasten ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not, and thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I sustain thee, for there are yet 5 years of famine, lest thou come to poverty, thou and thy household, and all that thou hast.
And one of the sorry. Another one of the points that I kind of wanted to make too is looking at looking at Joseph, you could kind of think of David's life as well, King David, Melech Dawid, and him being the youngest and him being undermined by his siblings. Because and David's story is even more severe when you think about it, because not only was he undermined by his siblings, he was undermined by his Abba. Because when Shimei said, bring all your sons here, he didn't even think of David. He didn't even count him. So that should show us, again, Torah teaches Torah, but more so, and then that Torah teaches us. Because sometimes we'll do things, we'll be so thoughtless in our actions that we don't realize the harm that we're bringing. If David's brother's behavior was that way towards him, oh, here he come. Exactly, troublemaker. They most likely, they Abba, he kind of showed that he had that same sentiment as David's brothers. So a lot of times, those of us, especially those of us who are the youngest in the family, we like to look at Joseph, even though Joseph isn't the youngest, but Joseph and David. Why? Because although they were the ones that seemed to be counted out by their family, they was the ones that the Most High used to bring a blessing for everybody else. Because, sorry, sleep guy. Losing my train of thought a little bit, but it's coming back. Just give me 1, 3, 2. Okay. All right. So with David and with Joseph, they were both undermined a little bit in their upbringing. And let us be careful to not undermine the ones before us, whether it be your kids, your siblings, anything. Somebody tell me they think they could do something, I tell them go for it. And even if it don't work out, try a new plan, try something different, because you don't know. A lot of times we deal with people a certain way, and it's like you don't even know who you're talking to. You don't know what the Most High has on that person, and it's like, let me be careful how I deal with them. At least that's what I see from this. Because it's always easy for us to look at the offended, but we don't think about ourselves as the offender. And it's like none of us are ever always the offended. Like there are going to be points in our life where we're on the other side. So it's like, how do I handle this better? Let's take that from there. Now we're moving forward here, and we're talking about Joseph letting them know that he's going to sustain the family through the famine. Tosif?
And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, and that it is my mouth that speaketh unto you. Mm-hmm. Ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen, and ye shall hasten, and bring down my father hither. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck, and wept. And Benjamin wept upon his neck, and he kissed all his brethren, and wept upon them. And after that his brethren talked with him.
So, although he was happy to see all his brothers, for those who don't know, Benjamin is his brother from the same mother. So he was more happy to see him than all the rest of his brothers. And at the same time, he had a traumatic experience with the rest of his brothers. So, yeah, he might be a little bit healed, and he telling them, don't worry, I got y'all, let that go. It was the Most High's plans. That hurt. It don't just magically disappear. He might be happy to see them because, he's been a stranger in a strange land, so he's happy to see something familiar. But at the same time, it's like, these are the same people that hurt me. That's always, that probably stayed with him till as we read, you're going to see little things that he do to let you know that hurt kind of stayed with him. So, of course, when he sees Benjamin, it says he fell upon his brother's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck, because now he get to see his big brother from the same mother. Granted, Joseph and Benjamin, sometimes sons favor their mother, so they probably both see their mothers facing each other, her not being here no more, that they needed this moment. They needed this moment. Tosif?
And the report thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come, and it did please Pharaoh well and his servants. Mm-hmm. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, say unto thy brethren, this do ye, lade your beasts, and go, get you unto the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households, and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and ye shall eat the fat of the land. Now thou art commanded this, do ye. Take your wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring unto your father, and come. Also regard not your stuff, for the good things for all the land of Egypt are yours. And the sons of Yisrael did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. To all of them he gave each man changes of raiment. But to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver, and 5 changes of raiment. And to his father he sent them like manner 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and victual for his father by the way. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed. And he said unto them, see that ye fall not out by the way. And they went up out of Egypt, and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father.
And there's the reason why he said that, because he knows his brothers. He knows what they're going to talk about while they're on the journey back. Oh, well, you was the one that said we should sell him, or you said we should kill him, or you were the one that was going upside his head every day, this, that, and the third. Now they all going to be bickering amongst each other because they all took a part in the plan that none of them tried to stop. And, one of my physics teachers in high school, he told me that in life there's no such thing as doing nothing. You can never do nothing. As a matter of fact, I was listening to a blind person speak, and they said they was trying to ask him what does he see, and he says nothing. And the person said, like when I close my eyes and you see, he said that's not nothing. When you close your eyes, you're still seeing black or something. You have a concept or visualization of something there. So us closing our eyes is not us seeing nothing. We can't even imagine nothing. I don't remember where I was going once again. My bad, y'all. But thank you. High school teacher. No such thing as nothing. See, that's why I needed you here earlier, man. But no. So my high school teacher, he was saying that there's no such thing as doing nothing. You're either always hurting or helping. He said, if you stand by, you're helping the problem, but as opposed to if you actively involve yourself in it, you're helping to stop the problem. One way or another, you're doing something. So there's no such thing as doing nothing. So right now, all of these brothers, he know that, like, you know what? I know the last time they saw me, none of us was on good terms. And then they probably had their own little personal problems anyway. Oh, were you the son of a handmaid? Or your mother's not loved? Kids do that to each other. I remember arguing with kids in kindergarten and like elementary school. Kids say hurtful things. Like I used to say things like, at least I have my father's last name. I was mean. Yeah, yeah. And that's why I say sometimes we're not always the offended, we're the offender. I had my days where I was a jerk too. So it's just like, he know that even him telling them this, they still probably went back and forth a little bit. So that goes back to what I was saying, where although he does forgive them, that hurt is still present. He's still reminded of what he went through when he sees them. So see?
Verse 25. And they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father. And they told him, saying, Joseph is yet still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. And his heart fainted, for he believed them not. And they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Yisrael said, It is enough. Joseph my son is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die.
Now, a lot of us can't imagine the feeling that's coming over Jacob right now, because as far as I know, none of us have thought we lost a child only to find out they were still alive. I saw something yesterday. I don't know if it was on Facebook, but I don't know if it was from a documentary or a movie, where a lady saw a boy that looked like her son because of a scar on his eye, and she went through hell and high water to try to verify that the boy that they said died was her son, because she was sure that this boy was her son. Just seeing an emotion being conveyed in that story or moment, I'm like, all right, I needed to see that so I could kind of really feel what Jacob is feeling at this moment, because this is one of those unbelievable moments. Like, I think the closest we could probably come to something like this is when you find money in your pocket and you wasn't expecting it, and it at least has a zero behind the number. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you done found a 10, 20, 50, 100. Like this, you finding a $100 bill that you done counted gone. And even that doesn't amount to what Jacob is feeling at this moment. Because again, although it's not good to show favoritism, we know that this is Jacob's favorite son, his first son from his favorite wife. So just, I can't convey that emotion. Hopefully y'all can imagine it. Tosif.
Chapter 46. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Yisrael took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Yitzchak. And God spoke unto Yisrael in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph said, shall put his hand upon thine eyes. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Yisrael carried Jacob their father, and their little ones, and their wives, in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. And they took their cattle and their goods, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with them, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he with him into Egypt. And these are the names of the children of Yisrael who came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons.
All right, so most of this now, for this chapter, we're just going to be reading a lot of names. So that's how I already knew we weren't going to be here that long. Because although there's a lot to unpack from this portion and all the previous portions, that's why I prefaced it with everything that I was saying before, because I consider my people. I know we most likely going to have to start back around 3:30, 3:45. So I say, you know what? Let me compile everything as much as I can. You know, I kept praying to the Most High throughout the week to just give me the right words and, you know, let me deliver it efficiently so that y'all can eat on a good time. Y'all can relax and talk to each other, enjoy each other's company. Because one of the things that I realized, too, is like, as Israelites, a lot of us don't see each other enough. Like, if you think it's approximately 52 Shabbatot in a year, and then if you add the holy days and feast days, etc., we probably seeing each other a little bit over 60 days a year. But if there's 360 days a year, it'll take us 365. It'll take us at least or about 5 years of keeping all of these days to know each other for 1 year, so to speak, if you do a little bit of math. We ain't gonna do too much math. So if you really sit down and think about that, then it's like that does contribute to the fact that we have a lot of problems in our community because a lot of us don't know each other. We're not around each other. We can't enjoy each other. And you think about Shabbat, right? Shabbat is supposed to be a day where we're kind of confined. You know, we can't think, or we shouldn't be thinking or talking about secular things. So certain aspects of our life, we put on a little bit of a costume on Shabbat. So it's just like, all right, you don't know that person, and that person don't know you. So really and truthfully, things that will kind of alleviate that is us spending a little bit more time around each other. And again, that goes back to me being thoughtful, and we're going to wrap up pretty soon. Wow. Yeah, so you can read these names, and we're going to keep moving forward.
And these are the names of the children of Yisrael who came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. And the sons of Reuben, Hanok, and Palu, and Hezron, and Carmi. And the sons of Simeon, Yemuel, and Yamin, and Ohad, and Yakin, and Zohar, and Shaul, the son of the Canaanitish woman. And the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the sons of Judah, Onan, and Shelah, and Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan.
And just to take a brief moment about and Onan, we know why the second brother died. Again, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, sexual immaturity, because he was only supposed to sleep with his brother's widow to fulfill a duty. And as we read from the story, he did what he did, but he backed out the parking spot, and he let the oil drip on the ground. It's children here, so I'm just trying to y'all smart, y'all know stuff. So and him doing that, he should have never done the duty in the first place. And that goes back to, again, us men practicing of various levels of maturity. And all the things that we're supposed to, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial as well. But all those things, we're supposed to be mature in those areas. So he cost himself his own life by taking on that responsibility and not following through. Tosif?
Middle of 12. And the sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. And the sons of Yissaskar, Tola, and Puva, and Yod, and Shimron. And the sons of Zebulun, Sered, and Elon, and Jalil. These are the sons of Leah, whom she bore unto Jacob and Padanaram, with his daughter Dinah. All the soul of his sons and his daughters were 33. And the sons of Gad, Ziphion, and Haggai, and Shuni, and Esbon, Eri, and Narodi, and Aredeli. and Areli. And the sons of Asher, Imnah, and Ishva, and Ishvi, and Beriah, and Sarah, their sister. And the sons of Beriah, Hebed, and Malkiel. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter, and these she bore unto Jacob.
No, you go ahead.
We're going to start over at 18. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter, and these she bore unto Jacob, even 16 souls. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph, and Benjamin. And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, who Asenah, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On board unto him. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela and Becher, and Ashbel, Gera and Naaman, Ehi and Rosh, and Mupim and Hupim.
So we see what Benjamin was up to. Tosif.
And Ar. These are the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob. All the souls were 14. And the sons of Dan, Hushim, and the sons of Naphtali, Jazil, and Guni, and Jezed, and Shilem. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave unto Rachel his daughter. And these she bore unto Jacob. All the souls were 7. All the souls belonging to Jacob that came into Egypt, that came out of his loins, besides Jacob's sons' wives, all the souls were 66. Mm-hmm. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2 souls. All the souls of house of Jacob that came into the Egypt were 70. And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph to show the way before him unto Goshen. And they came into the land of Goshen, and Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father to Goshen, and he presented himself unto him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while.
You know, another thought that I had when it came to Judah and Joseph is that if it had been Judah and all of the same instances that Joseph was in, as far as him telling his brothers the dream and everything, I'm nearly certain they wouldn't have had the same reaction, because as you can see here, they let Judah be their spokesperson. They let him, go before this man that's putting them through all these trials and tribulations. Even his father Jacob, he's allowing him to be the lead or the figurehead of the household also. That's showing that he possesses these qualities to be in a position that he's in. And him being in that position of authority, nowhere do we see here where Judah abuses that power. Because a lot of times people get into a position of power and they want to be authoritative over people in the wrong kind of ways. And it's like, the Most High put you in this position to be over these people, to help these people, and to lead these people. And that's something that we all should consider in our days and times as leaders, teachers, parents, that our authoritative power isn't to rule over our people, our households, or anything like that in rigor. Again, primarily talking to us men, but we are the primary person that's responsible for what goes on with these people. So everything kind of falls back on us. That's why we have to be on top of certain things. So Judah and Joseph, again, them not having a problem with Judah leading them. Sometimes in certain situations, you got to realize the problem that the person has is that it's you. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes people will take the smallest disagreement to kind of show you or tell you how they really feel. And it's like, it was never the matter, it was the fact that it was you. Because, again, the brothers wouldn't have reacted towards Judah the same way they did Joseph. Joseph was just a problem in the situation for them. Whatever it was that they was dealing with themselves internally, they couldn't handle how they felt when they looked at Joseph. So any and every little thing that he did, they was going to find a problem in it. Sometimes we have that same spirit like the brothers, and in certain situations, we're the Joseph, where people may like, damn, how come every time I say something, they got to disagree with it? Or why is it always, it's because it's you. That person has a problem with you. Learn how to see, learn and adjust, and maybe pull back. That was the point I wanted to make earlier. Isolation. Joseph was away from his family those first 13 years, then the 7 years of famine, 7 years of plenty, and then the 2 years of the famine. So Joseph was away from his family for 22 years. And a lot of times, and I even think about, again, David also, where the Most High put him in the house of Saul to get away from his family, because sometimes it's the people that's closest to you that undermine you the most. And as you're getting older and you're developing and you're, obtaining certain things, and, maybe it applies to some, maybe it doesn't, but it'll be siblings, family, relatives, whoever, that can't really handle or process your growth, and they say little undermining things. And that's why the Most High had to remove Joseph from his father's house, because clearly Jacob wasn't putting his sons in check. He wasn't keeping none of the households in check. His wives were constantly bickering. Jacob didn't have that same authoritative spirit that Abraham had, where Abraham was known to command his household to do that which is right. Matter of fact, Isaac didn't even have that same commanding spirit, because when Abraham died, doesn't it talk about them filling his wells up? They wouldn't have pulled that same move with Abraham, but they did it with Isaac. So we see that, where it talks about a righteous seed was planted, but out came a degenerate vine. It's like each generation, there's a little bit weaker than the last one. Sorry. Let me just drink some water real quick. Y'all can wait. Respectfully. But isolation always isn't a bad thing, because sometimes the Most High has to separate you to elevate you. And Joseph was away from his family for 13 years before he got into his position, but it still wasn't another 9 years later till he saw them. Why? Because the Most High couldn't have them around these people that was going to constantly make him insecure. That he couldn't have him around these people that was going to have him questioning the abilities that the Most High put in him, because then he may not have been that person to spoke up and save Egypt, and then saving Egypt, saving the world, and then saving the world, he saved his family. Same thing with David. Most High had to remove David from his household, and although Saul kind of had a eye, against him, because he knew that was his replacement, David being around his family would have been more damaging to his character than being around somebody who wanted to kill him. Right. And that shows you how much esteem or self-esteem really matters when it comes to bringing up a person. Because the Most High, had him defeat Goliath, get out of the household, be away from his fathers and brothers, so that he could be molded into the man that we read about, molded into the man that led all of these armies. And every religious ideology, whatever you want to call it, people know about King David. That little fake statue with that little white man with a whole lot of other little things, they call it David. Why? Because David is one of the most notorious characters in this book. And it also happens that he's a Judite too. Look at God. Wow. Somebody, see, I saw that face. Y'all know I was going to do it at some point. I know I'm a little serious when I get up here, but once I'm not on camera, everybody know I play almost all day. But, again, the reason why I'm trying to emphasize these things is because they needed therapy. And I'm not gonna advocate for therapy, but I think a lot of us, a lot of y'all and us, I'm gonna say us and y'all, need it. We definitely need there's a lot of healing that needs to be done from traumas that we dealing with from 10, 20, 30, for some of y'all 40, 50, 60 years ago. You ain't gotta laugh, bro. Some people are over 70. My Abba's 71, so everyone has the things that they need to deal with in their lives, and it's like, if you don't check those things, you're gonna pass them right on to somebody else. And that's what happens with a lot in our community. A lot of our people don't know how to deal with their emotions and issues, so they pass that hurt on to someone else. Going back to, let's see, Judah, Joseph. Where's we at almost?
Verse 30.
30? Yeah, that's what I thought. Hold on, give me a second. Now let me die. Now imagine how the brothers, I'm going to just read that real quick. And Yisrael said unto Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen thy face, that thou art yet alive. Again, Jacob being the same person that he is, imagine how all his 11 sons, Benjamin included, feels that he's saying, now I could die. It's like, damn, Abba, all right. But Benjamin also. Nah, I ain't gonna put that on little Benjamin. But you know what I mean? Jacob and all his behaviors and mannerisms, he's not really showing his sons that he cares about them to a certain extent. Like I was looking at 1 Samuel's, talking about Elquanah and Hannah and Peninnah. And I'm reading that again, and it's like at 29, I'm realizing things in a portion that I didn't realize before, where it was like it called Peninnah her rival. I said, damn, her rival. And she was literally poking fun at Hannah for not giving him children. And I'm like, wow, all right, so that happened with Hagar and Sarah, happened with Elquanah, Hannah, and Peninnah. And I'm like, and then when Hannah came to Elquanah with her distressed spirit, he didn't, no, not that part. I'm trying to word this the best way possible. When Hannah came to Elquanah with what she was feeling, he didn't invalidate her emotions at the moment. If anything, he told her how special she was to him. But if you read prior to that, he always gave her a double portion than everybody else. So, again, because, I said it earlier, I don't watch a lot of them because I don't like to consume too much garbage, but a lot of these podcasts, they talk about emotions, relationships, men, women. So it'll talk about how although a man can give a lot of gifts, sometimes women need emotional validation. They need that emotional security that they could, come to their man and their man could, help them deal with their emotions or make them feel secure and stuff. And it's like dealing with Elquanah in the situation with Hannah, despite the fact that he gave her double, she still was being vexed by her sister wife. And he didn't make her feel bad in that moment and say, oh, I give you all these gifts, you get double more than anybody, this, that, and the third. He said, you're more precious to me than 10 sons. So it's just like Torah teaches Torah. So when we read this book, and if we really reading and learning and understanding, things like that should teach us that, you know what? As a man, I shouldn't be emotionally shut off, because a lot growing up in the impoverished environments that we grow up in, we kind of learn to be a little cold. We kind of learn to be a little hard because things is hard out there. But it's like you got to know how to switch that switch off. You got to learn how to switch that button off and learn, all right, you know what? Let me be a lion in the streets and not so much of a lion in the house, because I'm a lion either way. But goes back, again, I'm going to say it one more time, emotional maturity and dealing with that situation. Jacob, 70 sons, swelling his neck. Where we at again almost?
Verse 30.
My fault. No, wait, there we go. And now we referring to Jacob as Israel. So you're going to see a lot of back and forth between Jacob, Israel, same person. Those who may not know, but most of us do, but it's all right. So now it's talking about Yisrael, Jacob, saying, let me die in peace, since he's seen, Joseph's face, and it's like, once again, he's not considering the feelings of the other ones that's around him. And it doesn't make, any of us less of a man to consider as a person emotions before we say what we're about to say or before we do what we're about to do. Tosi, 31.
And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto his father's house, I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and will say unto him, my brethren and my father's house, who were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. Mm-hmm. And the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of cattle. And they have brought their flocks in their heads, in their herds, and all that they have. And it shall come to pass, when Pharaoh shall call you, and shall say, what is your occupation? That ye shall say, the servants have been keepers of cattle from our youth even until now, both we and our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians. Chapter 47. What?
No. It's keep going. You got like one more chapter.
Then Joseph went in and told Pharaoh and said, my father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan. And behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And from among his brethren he took 5 men and presented them unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, what is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, thy servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers.
Follow instructions.
And they said unto Pharaoh, to sojourn in the land are we come? For there is no pasture for thy servants, flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke unto Joseph, saying, thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and thy brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if thou knowest any able man among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And Joseph brought in Jacob his father, and set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how many are the days of the years of thy life? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life. And they have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of the sojournings.
The days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life. We got to unpack that a little bit. So, again, we only know what's on paper. There's people that may think they have other books from the excerpts of this book and a whole bunch of little add-ins to the stories and stuff. We don't mess with those books. If you didn't know, now you know. What's here is what we go by. However, so I got a little time, we're going to hypothesize a little bit. A lot of times I feel like we move away from the fact that Jacob did what he did and his life wasn't good after that. Now, you could say that, oh, his life, like what he went through wasn't a punishment for what he did because it was his imah that said he should do it. But look at his life after he disrespected his father. Because what he did was disrespect. And as we know, honor thy father and thy mother so that thy days should be long upon the land which Yehudah thy God giveth thee. He, and listening to his imah, because I know some of us want to shift the blame in that situation, to her. I mean, it is her fault, but it's both of their fault because really and truthfully, me personally, I wouldn't let my parents play me against one another, especially not to deceive to that extent. I'd have to say, Salakli, whatever sin comes on me for not listening to you in this matter, so be it, but I'm not going to play no games against my Abba. I'm not going to play no games against my imah. Y'all deal with y'all problems personally. But in it, because he wanted and because he coveted what was his brother's, that's the part that we missing too. Jacob coveted what was his brother's. So in him coveting, he allowed himself to disrespect his Abba. And in him disrespecting his Abba by beguiling him, his life ended up being a whole bunch of trickery. Between him getting 4 wives and not even, all he wanted was one and ended up with 4. Right. Now he got a divided household between his wives and his children, and they all run into him with headaches. But you got to look at it. This is a situation that he created. Because he wouldn't have had to run up out of his hometown, run up out of home if he didn't do what he did to his brother. So when he talks about the years and his life have been few, Torah, have been few and evil are the days of his life. And even then, you see where he talks about he's only 130 years old and that the years of his life, and they have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers and the days of their sojournings. Because we know Abraham lived to 175. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Isaac lived to 180. Jacob is only 130 right now, and he's going through it. He's going through it. Yeah, he might be happy that he just found his son, but he's been living a long... So if you think about it, 22... So if he's just seeing him after 22 years, that means Jacob was most likely about 108 when Joseph was born. That's really a son of old age. Wait, no, I'm Slika. Not. I did the math wrong. He was 108 when he lost Joseph. So 17 years before that. Anybody? Damn, y'all not sharp today. Nah, 85. Wait, I did it wrong. 91.
92.
Yeah, 91. This guy right here. The kids don't do that no more? All right. But so you look and you really see, okay, Joseph was also the son of Jacob's old age, the same way Isaac was the son of Abraham's old age. So, because, even from a scientific perspective, I ain't trying to hurt no feelings or nothing, but us men can continue to produce seed, especially if we take care of ourselves, pretty much no matter how old we get, So he ain't seen his son in 22 years, since he was 108 years old. Now he 130. His son is coming back into his life. And although he's happy to see him and have his family be together, he's still saying he had a miserable life. But let us learn from Jacob and realize that what we receive from life is what we put in, or put out, rather. Because you only reap what you sow. And I personally, some people may feel differently. I'm using my feelings. And I personally feel like everything that Jacob went through in life all happened as a trickle-down effect of what he did. I know sometimes you look at it like, the Most High allowed it to happen, so that's the way it was supposed to be. And it's like, let's look at life around us and think about all of the things that happen when we make that statement. Think about everything that happened and goes on in the world. Everything that happens. Because there's sex trafficking, there's organ harvesting. There's a lot of wicked things goes on in the world. And yes, although the hand of the Most High is all over and nothing is without of his realm, just think about the fact that he gave us freedom, like free will. We have the ability to choose how we're going to handle a situation. This doesn't mean that certain outcomes won't be a certain way, but from A to B, the journey could be very different. Sometimes it could be a straight line, it could be a zigzag, it could curve and go up and down. All A and B is still A and B. The Most High knows the beginning and the end of the matter. All that in between stuff, that's on us. So this is the life that he chose by doing what he did. Tosif.
Verse 10. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, and the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded.
That was the thought that I wanted to finish off with. When we, I feel like when we excuse certain things that happen in here just because these are our patriarchs, we don't allow ourselves to fully evolve, because it's like, I'm going to say it again because I also had to say it again. When we excuse certain behaviors of the people in this book because they're our patriarchs, we don't allow ourselves to fully evolve. And if we don't acknowledge that, okay, wrong is wrong,
That's right.
and despite the fact that they are our makers, they are our progenitors, but it's very important to understand that these are not perfect people. And acknowledging their imperfections, that will allow us to acknowledge our own and learn how to be better versions of ourselves. Because, not to harp on what Jacob did, but just using that little instance of what was going on. And then let's go back to Rebecca and playing Jacob against her husband. There's a reason why I mentioned Abraham and Sarah coming to Abraham in the issue that she had with Hagar. Because this might sound a little misogynistic, but she followed a proper protocol and coming to her husband to help her deal with this matter before just jumping and handling it, because she knows she's dealing with a household. So she can't always react off of her emotions. This is why it says to be like Abraham and be like Sarah. Pay attention to their behaviors. We ain't got a lot on them, but pay attention to the little things and learn what you can gather from that. So when she had her issue, when she had those two issues that we read about, she ran to Abraham both times. When Rebecca had an issue, she came up with a solution. Alone. And now look how everything turned out in life. She can't see her son. She can't be there for her grandchildren all these years. Let's think about these things before we emotionally react in certain situations. Tosif?
And Joseph sustained his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread according to the one of their little ones. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished by the reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For our money faileth. And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you bread for your cattle if money fail. And they brought their cattle into Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for the horses, and for the flocks, and for the herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with bread in exchange for all their cattle for that year. And when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide from my Lord. How that our money is all spent, and the herds of cattle are my Lord's. There is naught left in the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore should we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be bondmen unto Pharaoh. And give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land will not be and the land be not desolate. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt of Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine was sore upon them, and the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them city by city, from one end of the border of Egypt even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion from Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their land. Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have bought you this day, and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass at the ingatherings that ye shall give a fifth unto Pharaoh, and
Taxes.
4 parts shall be your own. For seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, thou hast saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's bondmen. And Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. Only the land of the priests alone became not Pharaoh's. And Yisrael dwelt in the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen, and they got them possessions therein, and were fruitful, and multiplied exceedingly.
Hallelujah. Wow, 10 minutes early. I'm good. But again, there's so much to learn and unpack from all of these sidrot. And as we begin to progress in our story, because we'll be in the book of Exodus soon, and we're going to start to deal with Moshe and all of the problems that he dealt with. You know, don't forget, like, don't let today pass and forget all of the things that you've learned from the previous lessons. Because all of the things that I hold on to and held on to for the past however many plus years from all of the leaders and teachers and stuff that I've had, that allowed me to mold myself and avoid a lot of situations. Certain things in life are a little bit unavoidable, but when you actually adhere to the words of the people that's before you, because really and truthfully, I feel like, you know, sometimes as kids, we do have a little bit of a mindset of, because they don't know what's going on in our world, that they can't help us, but there's wisdom to be taken from it. I still have all of my notebooks from when I was 14 and 15 years old, and I look back at the notes that I took from those lessons, and it's like sometimes I say to myself, damn, you was wiser 10 years ago. Or, you know, just looking at the notes, why? Because in the past 5 to 10 years, I haven't really been putting that pencil to paper when lessons are being taught. Like, yeah, I'm internalizing the words that's being spoken, and I'm listening to it, but it's like when you writing, that helps your brain record it better. And, you know, not to say that any of you young men need to be taking out books and taking notes, because y'all all seem like you're actively listening, but these are things that'll help you, because sometimes as I go through the week and I would open any of these, you know, any of my notebooks up, I'll look at something that was said on Shabbat, and sometimes that'll help me for that day. Or even now, over a decade plus later, it helps me now. Really and truthfully, I probably should have looked through my books knowing that I had to teach this week, you know, but I mean, the Most High knew what needed to be said, and he knew what was on my heart. So that's why I didn't even want to study that much, because I read the portion and I said, I already knew, you know, I knew what to take from where and say what needed to be said. And that being said, I pray that, you know, nothing I said was wrong, or if it was offensive, toughen up. No, I'm just kidding. If it was offensive, Salakli, again, my opinions and everything that I said are my own personally. They're not a reflection of D.C.B. I pray that you all got something out of what I said, and thank you for taking the time to listen. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.